Coming up on 2020 on ID, two little girls kidnapped.
Are you okay?
And using their wits to outwit their predators.
I just had to get his trust.
She became a real person to him.
How they escaped.
And I figured that would go to the lock.
I saw the house and I said, that's the house.
And how they survived the years to come.
They're unusual kids.
Plus, Yale co-eds on a bike trip to discover America. Instead, tearing through the darkness, they discover a madman with an axe.
I hear my friend scream. We were being murdered by a single psycho.
The case went cold, but not the memories, and neither did suspicions.
And I said, you know something, Dick? I know the well you did it.
Years later, a face-to-face confrontation.
He looked mean.
Stories of terror and survival. Welcome to 2020 on ID. I'm John Quinones. Few of us can predict how we might react when faced with sudden, terrifying danger. But the extraordinary people you're about to meet faced life-threatening situations, and through bravery and brains, they survived. First, two exceptional children who got away from the predators who captured them. As Chris Cuomo first reported in 2001, getting out alive was just the beginning of their stories.
Jeanette Tamayo and Mitzi Sanchez are members of a small club nobody wants to join. Kids whose innocent faces appeared on missing posters, but who lived to tell the tale.
All they say is that you're a brave little girl.
I wanted to see my family again.
For what?
I first heard Mitzi and Jeanette's stories when they were little girls many years ago.
NSYNC, the boy band? You don't want my autographed picture up there?
And you will not believe where they are today. But back then, they were living through situations almost no one survives. Mitzi's story begins on August 10th, 2000. She was a spunky third grader back in Vallejo, California, running home from school to celebrate her 8th birthday. Though her parents had warned her to never walk alone, Mitzi raced a block ahead of her brother.
She likes to do things on her own. She doesn't like to have me tell what to do.
It's a trait that not only got her into trouble, but would also help save her life. August 10th, 2 p.m. As she approaches this corner just a block from home, Mitzi senses she isn't alone. From a car like this one, a man with a cane's coming toward Mitzi. But before she could run, he's got her. Before she could scream, his hands covering her mouth. Next thing she knows, she's in the car. She's thrown down here, stuffed between the dashboard and the seat. He covers her with a blanket, then shackles her ankles to the gear shift with a chain like this one. The next 44 hours would be terrifying, but the man who kidnapped Mitzi Sanchez would get much more than he bargained for. Mitzi says he tells her to keep quiet or he'll kill her. And then, still covered by that blanket in the August heat, she's driven around for hours.
Were you scared?
Yeah.
For the next day and a half, her abductor taunts Mitzi, eating in front of her but giving the child nothing. Instead of water, he forces Mitzi to drink beer and wine. But before the little girl's ordeal was over, it would get much worse.
His intentions were to kidnap a young child and molest her, and that's what he did.
In fact, Mitzi says she thought she would die. But instead of panicking, somehow she keeps calm and waits for some kind of break.
And she chose the time to escape absolutely perfectly.
August 12th, 11 a.m. 44 hours have passed, and though her abductor has left the car several times already, finally an opening. He gets out again, this time leaving his keys behind. In the safety of her room, Mitzi explained how she got away.
Where did he leave the keys? Were they in the ignition or on the floor?
They're in the floor.
He didn't know he left them there, did he? Or do you think he figured you wouldn't know what to do with them?
He thought I didn't know what to do with them.
He was wrong.
Though she knew he could return at any moment, Mitzi shows remarkable poise, trying one key after another, and then...
I saw a little one and I figured that would go to the lock.
How did you know?
Because most locks have little keys.
She's right. The lock opens. Mitzi rolls down the window, and though she's numb and bruised from 2 days of being chained to the car, she leaps out and runs for her life. Her abductor is only a few feet away.
As I was coming around this corner right here, I noticed her screaming, saying, "Leave me alone."
Delivery truck driver Carl Tafua suddenly sees a small figure darting across the road. He slows to a stop, and Mitzi literally dives through his window.
That's when she jumped through and said, "Here he comes, he's going to try to kill me." That's when I noticed.
Tafua notices that Mitzi's abductor is driving away.
And went the opposite directions, and I picked up the radio and called in his license plate number.
Amazingly, after 2 days with a madman, Mitzi has escaped.
Could you believe that she actually escaped and got away?
At that time, I go, yeah, that's my little girl.
August 12th, 7:25 p.m. Based on that license plate, police arrest 39-year-old Curtis Dean Anderson at a house in San Jose. What kind of man abducts and terrorizes a child? A man like Curtis Dean Anderson. In and out of prison for most of his adult life, he has a staggering criminal history. Upon his release, he was on the most watched list for parolees. But when his parole ended, he was once again free to do as he pleased. And in this jailhouse interview, Anderson boasted that his victims secretly enjoy his depraved advances.
If I did it 100 times, and I've only been to police attention once, then doesn't that say that, there's something that maybe the other people involved don't think of these as crimes like you in society do?
Anderson goes to trial for Mitzi's abduction, charged with kidnapping and 10 counts of sexual assault. As a detective details the graphic abuse, Anderson has the gall to laugh. Suddenly, deputies rush into the courtroom to restrain Mitzi's father.
I got in trouble for that. I tried to get him, and it was so crazy.
But when Mitzi takes the stand, she looks Anderson straight in the eye and gives unflinching testimony of all 44 hours. She's not afraid of him anymore.
I have been keeping up with you, and you are still our hero.
Mitzi heard from many well-wishers.
You probably won't realize until you are older how much you have helped our family. Thank you. I hope in the future you will teach other children to be as strong and as smart as you are.
When we return, another little girl in trouble. Can she escape?
I saw the house and I said, that's the house.
And years later, what they share.
I've moved on. I've not let what he did to me ruin my life.
Stay with us. Mitzi Sanchez is not the only young girl to escape her abductor. An exceptional child named Jeanette Tamayo did something most adults couldn't do. She tricked her captor and saved her life. As Chris Cuomo first reported in 2005, it began on an ordinary school day.
This tiny home security camera sees everything that happens on Southwind Drive in San Jose. One June afternoon, as this little girl comes home from school, it captures the image of a predator who's been waiting in his car, following her into the house.
Did you know what to do?
I wasn't thinking, I was just scared.
This soft-spoken sweetheart is his prey, Jeanette Tamayo. Before that day, Jeanette was a precocious little girl who loved riding her bike, wearing pink, and sharing her bed with a jungle of furry friends.
We have a little deal. This is their half. They sleep over there, and this is my half. This is where I sleep.
What was about to happen would haunt her for many sleepless nights to come. Jeanette is alone inside with the intruder, the security camera still rolling, when her mother and brother come home. But they are no match for this monster. He severely beats them both and races off with Jeanette. A 9-year-old girl is handcuffed in a box in the back seat of that car. She has no idea who her captor is, why he has kidnapped her, or where they're going. Police searched. Parents prayed. Experts say most abducted children who are murdered die within the first few hours. Stories we've all heard before. A imagine Jeanette's fear as the man pulls up to this house and drags her inside. She is held prisoner, handcuffed, trapped in a second-story bedroom.
The day of my darkness. I'm lonely in disguise, with fear in the darkness.
Today, she expresses the emotions in poetry. Some of the details are still too painful to talk about. The man threatened to kill her and raped her repeatedly for 2 days. But Jeanette was no ordinary victim. Somehow she managed to keep her wits about her, and from the beginning was planning her escape.
You knew that you weren't going to take him physically.
Yeah,
What were you thinking, though?
that I just had to get his trust.
You could outsmart him, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember the video we watched the other night?
Dr. Steve Cece is a child development expert at Cornell University.
Some kids, in the face of rape, abduction, torture, can be cool-headed, level-minded, and calmer than many adults. They're unusual kids.
Authorities say Jeanette's remarkable cool probably saved her life.
Killers often dehumanize their victims. Every step of the way, she was not just quiet, not scared to death to the point where she wasn't talking and not interacting. She kept interacting to the point where she became a real person to him.
Was that hard, to talk to someone that you really didn't like?
Yeah, it was, because I really just wanted to punch him, hit him, and
What kind of things were you saying to him?
we just started talking like normal people would, and then he started trusting me, and then he just took off the handcuffs, and then he let me walk around the house, and that's when I started getting the clues.
You want to be a detective.
Yeah.
What were you doing that whole time?
I was getting evidence.
As she later explained to the police, while her first goal was to stay alive, she was also intent on coming up with evidence to use against him. How does a little girl think of such a thing? In this case, from TV, Jeanette says she watched detective shows like Cops and CSI. Suddenly, she was in a real-life crime show.
There were like little animals, and I asked him, "What's that?" He picked it up and showed me, so then I took it and put it in my pocket.
Wait, did you ask him to pick up the animal because you knew it was made of clay?
Yeah.
And because you knew that when he touched it, his fingerprints would be on it?
Yeah.
Give me a potato. Give me a quick potato. All right, now let's do it.
Watching TV and doing it in real life are very different things. But Jeanette, though afraid, had a drive to get back at her captor, so she just kept trying to earn his trust, telling him about her plans for the future, her love for her family. By the time she complained how hungry she was, she had won him over. He let Jeanette call for pizza, which was really just a chance for her to gather more evidence. This time, his phone number.
His phone number was 460-5771. And that his fake name was Jose.
Now he was even letting Jeanette watch TV with him, and something she saw gave her an idea.
What comes on the television?
I heard that they were testing for asthma, and I decided to say that I had asthma. So then I would tell them I need my asthma medicine.
And did that work?
Yeah, because then I told them I was going to die.
Maybe it was the asthma story. Maybe it was 2 days of police helicopters hovering overhead. Whatever it was, the man decided to let Jeanette go. And she was soon wandering into this market after he dropped her off on a street corner.
Are you okay?
Not long after, police pick Jeanette up and take her for medical care and a family reunion.
When people are put in bad situations, sometimes they don't know what to do. You did something very different. I feel proud just to sit over here and talk to you.
I don't know what to say.
Uncommon courage. Uncommon courage.
And Jeanette wasn't done. Remember the start of the ordeal, the awful ride in the back seat of the car? Even in that initial terror, Jeanette had kept track of every turn the man took. Now, she wanted to use her clues to catch her captor.
Sitting in the backseat of the police car, within an hour of having just been released, she's able to direct the police to exactly where she was held captive by telling them, take a right here, take a left here, take a right here, it's on this street.
And the last street, which was Flintwell Street, they found, I saw the house and I said, that's the house.
She'd been raped, she'd been tied up, and to survive that and to recall where the turns were, how far they were, it's just an amazing act.
The suspect, David Montiel Cruz, was preparing to flee when the police arrived, but he would not escape his fate thanks to Jeanette's bravery, detective work, and eventually her testimony in court.
Her testimony was extremely moving. You could see when she testified, jurors were openly crying.
It is still unclear just what motivated Cruz. He had no prior sex convictions, but the judge called it one of the most horrific crimes he had ever seen and sentenced Cruz to more than 100 years in prison. Remembering the struggle, even with the happy ending, is at once empowering and frightening to this very special hero.
When I'm sad, when I'm upset, or when I think about the past, I kind of write in here.
The trauma remains, and the memories often cloud her daily life. Pain so personal, she writes about it in her diary using invisible ink.
It's helping me forget about it.
Taking what's inside and making it go somewhere else.
Yes.
But Jeanette says she still gets scared often. She's still a victim of her past, which is why she collects guardian angels to watch over her. With time, Jeanette's tortured memories will begin to slowly recede, says Dr. Robin Goodman, who works with traumatized children.
What happens with these kids is this becomes kind of a distant memory, and when that happens, they're able to have positive memories, go on with their life, have fun, not avoid things because they're terrified.
Where did you find the strength to keep doing the detective work?
Because I wanted to see my family again, and it was for the safety of others so that man wouldn't get away and hurt other children.
You were thinking that this man will do this to someone else?
Yeah.
And you didn't want that to happen?
No.
Give me that, take it.
When we come back, Mitzi and Jeanette as they are today.
Look at how you've grown up. I'm so shocked.
As they meet for the first time and share their powerful stories.
It makes me emotional because I know
See what's next.
Mitzi Sanchez and Jeanette Tamayo were extraordinary children. They were able to escape the men who kidnapped and assaulted them. But what was harder was going back to ordinary life. Once again, Chris Cuomo.
Are you okay?
Jeanette Tamayo was only 9 when she managed to outwit her abductor. Amazingly, she then helped police track him down.
Within an hour of having just been released, she's able to direct the police to exactly where she was held captive.
I saw the house and I said, that's the house.
The suspect, David Montiel Cruz, was sentenced to more than 100 years, thanks to Jeanette's bravery, detective work, and eventually her testimony in court.
You could see when she testified, jurors were openly crying.
Mitzi Sanchez's abductor was also captured. Police arrested this man, Curtis Dean Anderson, a serial molester who would later admit to killing 2 other girls. Thanks to Mitzi's unflinching testimony, Anderson got 251 years behind bars. He died in prison.
And what are you afraid of now?
Nothing.
10 years have passed since I first met Mitzi. She is now an 18-year-old woman and very much a survivor.
Look at how you've grown up. I'm so shocked that this is that little 8-year-old girl. Do you remember being 8 years old? Do you remember being that little girl?
somewhat. It was back in the day, so
You've had like a lifetime since then.
seems like it.
It would be nice to say that after her escape, Mitzi lived happily ever after. But as we all know, it's never that simple.
What was going on in your head and your heart after the cameras left, when you had to start your life again?
I just acted like it was a dream. It felt like it was just a dream. You know, I ignored it. I didn't deal with it. I did have a lot of anger in me and got into trouble and stuff.
The coming years would bring a series of setbacks. Mitzi started fighting with kids who teased her in school. She struggled with substance abuse and suffered a near-fatal car accident. And yet Mitzi says nothing prepared her for this. In 2009, she got involved in the search for another missing girl, Sandra Cantu. When Sandra's body was found, Mitzi came face to face with a terrifying truth.
We prayed for her. Why didn't it work out the way we would all have loved it to?
Because it usually doesn't, right? Did you realize that in that moment?
I didn't want to believe it. That was hard.
Jeanette is now a lovely 18-year-old as well.
Do you remember talking to me the first time?
I do.
Where was your head then?
I was nervous. I was young. I was just nervous.
Her confidence today did not come easily. For years, she dealt with her personal pain by writing about it in her diary using invisible ink.
It's helping me forget about it.
She collected guardian angels and stuffed animals to make her feel safe. But for years, she almost never left her house, gripped in the clutch of paralyzing fear.
Fear was taking the best of me. It was taking over. I wouldn't go outside of my house. I was afraid of people, especially men. Even the men in my family, like my cousins.
Jeanette would turn 15, undergo years of therapy, all before she felt comfortable venturing beyond her fortress of solitude.
I think I was out at the mall with my friends. That was a big thing to do.
What do you remember thinking or feeling?
I'm okay. I can do this. Everything's going to be okay. No more fear.
Just give me one more. Look at that. Look how much bigger your hand is.
Jeanette and Mitzi, such amazing survivors.
I want to hug you. I'm so excited to meet you.
We thought they have to meet, so we brought them together.
It was good meeting someone that went through something like I did.
Mitzi, you ever meet anybody else that you share that kind of bond with?
No, I thought it was great. I fell in love with her. She's a sweetheart.
So surviving, what makes people survive? It's like a mystery.
It's just something within yourself, like you're not going to stay here and not at least attempt or try. At least if something does happen to me, at least I know inside I tried.
Jeanette lives by the motto, no fear, and looks forward to a career as a wedding planner or a makeup artist.
I've moved on. I've not let what he did to me ruin my life.
Today, Mitzi says she's gotten herself together. She's working full-time, she's sober.
There you go.
And she still finds time to volunteer at children's safety awareness events.
This is a healing process for me, and also, just to help prevent it from happening to other kids, what happened to me.
They have both grown into strong, articulate, and beautiful young women. But still, this is the Jeanette.
I still have those cheeks.
Do you miss this girl?
She's still in me.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. I remember this. You remember this picture?
It's cute.
Oh, I gotta breathe. That's my dad. And that's me. When I came home, we were outside of my house, and my dad was carrying me up to our stairs, our front door. But that makes me emotional because I know it's okay.
So what do you say to the other kids out there or people who have been through things?
Time heals all wounds. You just have to keep going. Overcome your obstacles. It makes you stronger.
Some wise man once told me that if you put your troubles into a circle with everybody else's, you'll be glad to pick yours up and walk home. And that's so true, because it could have been so much worse.
As of 2013, Mitzi is the mother of a young child. She volunteers with a missing children organization, and she says helping families maintain hope is her passion. The man who abducted Jeanette, David Cruz, remains in prison. Jeanette says she's moved on with her life and is doing well. When we come back, a college co-ed's road trip turns into a night of terror.
I knew we were being murdered by a single psycho.
Stay with us. In 1977, Terry Jentz was a college student with a sense of adventure. What better way to spend the summer than on a bicycle tour of America with a friend? But that trip turned out to be a journey into horror when they were brutally attacked. Terry survived that night, but as Jay Shadler first reported in 2006, in order to finally move forward, she had to confront the past.
When Terry Jentz was a little girl, she had a Viewmaster. It had a picture wheel showing the great American West in days gone by, and one image of a headless gunman that Terry now says was a premonition of a terrible night yet to come.
I got to this image of a torso dressed in cowboy attire with a holster slung around the waist, training his gun on the viewer, which in 3D looks very, very real. I mean, you are looking down the barrel of the gun.
Decades later, it was not a gun, but the cold blade of an axe that would chill and cut Terry to the bone. It was the summer of 1977. Terry and a female companion push off from the Willamette Valley in Oregon on a cross-country bike trip. At the time, both women are undergraduates at Yale University, and their plan is to follow America's bicentennial bike trail, discovering the country and themselves along the way.
Well, I was a brash 19 going on 20-year-old. Thought I could do anything and felt immortal. Did not have a lot of common sense. I didn't have a sense of real dangers. I really had no clue what America was about. But what I do remember is what you hear from the rock songs of those times, you know, like the Eagles or Fleetwood Mac, Go Your Own Way. You know, it's just a sense that anything was possible, and you'd go out and make it happen.
On June 22nd, 1977, after a long day of biking into the high desert, the two women roll into Klein Falls State Park near Redmond, Oregon. They'll pitch their tent here, even though she says something unnerves them. They feel they are being watched.
So you had a definite
premonition.
sense of panic?
Absolutely. It was an animal instinct of danger. And we both had it. We felt like we were being watched. It was just an odd feeling. We both said it separately to one another.
But you stayed anyway?
We stayed anyway. Because, of course, what could be happening? Just being paranoid.
With nightfall, the park grows still. And for a few perfect moments, there are only the stars and sleep.
And about a half an hour later, I would say I wasn't asleep a very long time. I heard a screech, and I woke up, and I was being dragged by a terrifically heavy weight. There was a truck on my body. I first thought it was an accident because, of course, it's preposterous to wake under a truck. Yeah. What I then hear seems like a single individual getting out of a vehicle which has a high carriage. And at that moment, I have a picture in my mind, pickup, and stepping down. And at that moment, I hear my friend, Green, sharply, leave us alone. And then I hear a blow. And then I hear 6 more, just like that. And nothing, silencer. And at that point, I knew we were being murdered by a single psycho.
The stranger with his axe now turns back toward the truck and Terry.
I catch a glimpse of a piece of wood. I feel a hunk of cold metal. And I then start losing consciousness. But a voice inside said, wait a minute, I'm too young to die here in this strange desert. And at that moment, I opened my eyes and I saw standing over me, meticulously dressed cowboy torso, straddling me on each side. But I could see it poised above me was an axe or a hatchet. And I looked up at him and I opened my eyes and I said, take a thing, but leave us alone. He brought the axe down slowly. And I caught it in my hand right above my heart and grabbed the blade in my hands. And then he withdrew it, stepped over me, walked away, got back in the vehicle, and squealed away.
Despite broken bones and deep wounds to her head and arms, Terry stumbles to the road, flagging down a pickup.
I see how the the corner of the truck, the window, somebody frantically waving a flashlight. You know, it wasn't a wave where it was like, how you doing? It was a wave like, I need help.
Suddenly out of the trees came the lady covered in blood and screaming, and she was in the headlights, and then that's when I realized something was very wrong. And I definitely knew that she'd been attacked by something or someone.
Bill Penhollow and Boo Isaac were just teenagers that night. Driving through the park after a lover's spat, they see Terry struggling from the shadows and feel the presence of a madman somewhere in the dark.
And I remember saying, you know, stop, we need to stop and help, that person needs help.
And I ran up to the window, and there were two teenagers looking at me with their jaws just dropped.
And she was right there in the window, and she was messed up. You could see by looking at her. She was so bloody that it was blood dripping off her hair, the ends of her hair.
And I said, you've got to help us. My friend is dying by the river.
Guided by Terry, Boo and Bill begin moving her gravely wounded friend from the riverbank, just as a second set of headlights slice into the park. But suddenly they veer off, speeding into the night.
As we were down there loading her up, a vehicle came down the park and scanned its lights on us and stopped. And I assumed for sure it was the attacker.
It was like all three of us had this shot of adrenaline that we thought he was back.
Is the Axeman coming back? And who is he?
Did you know at that point who her assailant was?
Yeah, I think a lot of people did, yeah.
Who was it?
When we come back, Terry Gents finally finds the man she believes attacked her.
He looked mean, and he looked radiantly mean.
Stay with us. Terry Gents and her friend have been brutally attacked by a man wielding an axe. Terry has managed to get to the road where two teenagers driving by have stopped to help her. Once again, Jay Shadler.
In the darkness, a sweep of headlights seems to mark the return of the Axeman. But suddenly they veer off, speeding into the night. Meanwhile, Terry and her companion have suffered severe wounds and are rushed to a nearby hospital. From its windows, you can see the snow-capped volcanoes that grace the borders of Redmond, Oregon. The little town has suffered a blow, too, from the Axeman.
This is God's country. So I think there was a mentality all over the state that we are this nature-loving community. These things do not happen here. This is paradise.
Within hours of the attack, local police searched the crime scene. But aside from pictures made of the truck's tire tracks, the official investigation quickly runs cold. The rumor mill, however, is heating up. This local editorial hints that the town may know more than it's telling.
Rumors surfaced and stuff of an attacker. They thought they found some kind of hatchet or something in the river with the initials on it.
What were the initials?
D and DD.
But that rumor, along with reports that police are planning to question a local 17-year-old boy about the crime, all eventually fade away.
I think people were assuming the police were taking care of it. I think the police were assuming that people would be calling in tips if they knew them. And there was, a massive disconnect.
In the years that follow, both girls recover, though Terry's companion reportedly loses all memory of the attack due to the trauma. The terror is buried inside Terry, too.
There was a deadening of my earlier vitality. And with each passing year, it seemed to get a little bit more extreme. I was such a willful younger woman. And so what changed it had to have been that attack. And I began to realize I had enormous fear in the body. The fear had gone underground. It had gone into fear of everything, amorphous fears. Fears of earthquakes, fears of random attacks anywhere, anything.
So you were a scared woman.
Scared woman. I'd say a kind of paralysis. I had these repetitive dreams where I was stuck at the age of 20. Well, that sort of says it all. I couldn't shake those dreams. That something had not moved on.
An odd thing you were doing, though. There were bits and pieces, physical bits of this incident that you kept.
I kept that bike? I kept the sleeping bag with the bloodstains, yes.
What's paradoxical here is that had you wanted to really bury this thing forever in your mind, you wouldn't have wanted to keep those things.
Absolutely. I knew that someday I would have to figure it out.
For 15 years, Terry tries to carry on with her life back on the East Coast, but the crime at Klein Falls remains unsolved. Then, in 1992, Terry decides to pick up the trail herself, returning to Oregon with a video camera and a notepad.
I'd like to inquire as to whether...
Painstakingly, she begins combing police files and interviewing anyone who will talk.
To be honest with you, I mean, as someone who was nearly murdered, I just don't feel like this was ever handled properly.
Ironically, the pursuit of her attacker may be in vain. Terry discovers that the statute of limitations for the crime ran out in 1980. Legally speaking, the Axeman is untouchable.
I was angry. This notion that because a statute is passed, then what, nobody did it? Well, I have the scars. Somebody did it.
But who?
Less than 24 hours after Terry and her companion were legend out here at Klein Falls, Axeman may have struck him, not with a hatchet, but with his bare hands. And this time, the victim, she not only knows who did it, she went to the prom with him.
He could turn from this really nice, yes, ma'am, thank you, ma'am, to Satan in his eyes. I mean, it was just like two different people, night and day.
Jeannie Fish Fraley's boyfriend in high school, her date at the prom, is a man we'll call Dick Duran.
He would hit me quite often.
Physically abusive?
Physically.
And verbally?
And mentally.
Jeannie says Dick Duran's violence erupts on the day after the Klein Falls attacks, when she says he shows up drunk and angry at a nearby park.
He hit me several times and got me on the ground, and he kicked me. And then I heard him behind me. I hear, "I'm gonna kill you, bitch."
Jeannie escapes, but later that day, she says she notices that a toolbox in Duran's pickup, where he always stores a hatchet, is missing. It was there the night before, and she says the tires on his pickup have been changed. Jeannie begins to wonder if her boyfriend and the Klein Falls attacker are one and the same.
I thought about it, and I thought, well, this is really weird of what happened last night with the Klein Falls incident, and then what happened to me today. And so I went down to the scene at Klein Falls, and I recognized his tire tracks.
In your head at that point, were you thinking this is the guy who'd made the attack on the girls?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, I knew that.
Jeannie says she immediately goes to the police, telling them how she was attacked by Dick Duran.
My parents, they tried to file charges against him with all of this, and they were told that since we were both minors, just to forget it, is what the judge told my dad.
Curiously, Dick Duran was already well known to the local cops as a sometimes violent young cowboy who cared more about his clothes than his girlfriends. Over 30 years, he would compile a long police record with convictions for carrying a dangerous weapon, violating a restraining order, and driving under the influence. But despite his record and reputation in town, the police apparently never draw a connection between Dick Duran and Klein Falls. Former State Trooper Marlon Hine picked up the investigation in the 1990s.
Do you think that the local law and enforcement dropped the ball, Sam?
I wouldn't say so much drop the ball. I think there's a supervisor here and there that didn't know the initial real investigators to go out and do their job.
Did you know at that point who her assailant was?
Yeah, I think a lot of people did, yeah.
In fact, while he says the physical evidence is lacking, Marlon Hine believes Duran was the 17-year-old boy that those old newspaper clippings mentioned as being of interest to the police back in 1977. But there's no record of Duran ever being questioned.
It happened in such a beautiful place.
Isn't that something? Yeah.
Over the years, Pat Day hired Dick Duran for various jobs and has known him personally since the first rumors began spread about the attacks in Klein Falls. Daly says despite his denials, Dick Duran had a strange preoccupation with the crime.
He said, "You think I did that, don't you?" I said, "You know something? I damn well you did it. You're the guy that's bringing it up."
In 1995, Pat Daly arranges for Dick Duran to meet him at a local restaurant. The meeting is a ruse. Its real purpose is to let Terry Gents finally see Dick Duran in the flesh. Remember, on the night of the attack, the face of her assailant was hidden in the shadows.
Tell me what it was like when you first saw him.
He looked mean, and he looked radiantly mean.
Terry says Duran's presence that day matches her memory of the style cowboy who attacked her, but she refuses to confront him.
You've been a meticulous investigator. And yet, when you have the chance to put it right to him. You don't ask the question to him, face to face. Why?
I don't want to give him the power to rationalize, deny, justify, say he's sorry for something I don't think he is sorry for. It gives him power.
If he were sitting here and you really had the chance to say, Dick, this is what I want to know, wouldn't you want to know why from him?
But there's no why for an evil act. You know, it goes beyond rational thinking. It goes beyond what we can figure out. This is coming from another place. I don't think we can explain it so simply. And he certainly can't explain it simply. He would perhaps say he's sorry, and I wouldn't believe that.
We requested an interview with Mr. Duran. He declined repeatedly.
He says no, he hasn't. He's not changed his mind? No.
So we decided to talk to Terry Chubb. Chubb is Dick Duran's former parole officer and one of the few local officials who have spoken to Duran directly about the unsolved crime.
You sat down across the from him or next to him, looked him right down in the eye, said, "Did you do Klein Falls?"
Yes, I did.
You've that.
I did. I asked him specific, did you do it? And he did. I didn't do it.
And you believe him?
Well, I have my suspicions. But is there conclusive evidence? Not to my knowledge.
The other man who has directly questioned Dick Duran about the Klein Falls attacks is former State Trooper Marlon Hine. Prompted by Terry Jentz's reporting, Hine reopened the Klein Falls investigation in 1995 and ordered 2 polygraphs for Duran. Though the tests were technically labeled inconclusive because Duran reportedly had illegal drugs in his system, the official report on the second polygraph includes this exchange. Quote, "In June of 1977, did you attack those women in Klein Falls Park with a hatchet-type instrument?" Answer, no. Examiner's conclusions. It is this examiner's opinion that Mr. Duran is not being truthful in his responses to those relevant questions.
The examiner felt comfortable saying that he was deputive.
Do you put stock in that?
I bet I do.
The man who went after those 2 girls that night and attacked them with a hatchet.
If I took all the statements they had and home reports and was to take that to grand jury, I'm confident that I would get an indictment.
Which brings us back to Terry Jentz.
When a force out of nowhere comes and just takes your power away, suddenly cuts you down, you know, lays you low, almost ends your life as you know it, are you afraid of everything eventually, like everything, things that go bump in the night?
Terry's old viewmaster comes back to mind, but this time around she may finally be ready to move past the sinister stranger and picture a new life.
The man we call Dick Duran was never charged in Terry Jentz's attack. She's published a memoir about her experience, Strange Piece of Paradise. I'm John Quinones. Please join us for another edition of 2020 on ID.